Good evening, class. Tonight we're going to go over that assignment you had from the other night and see how you did. Let me get this a little bit closer. Okay. All right. What you had was another house, slightly different layout than the one we're working with. And first of all, what I'd like to do is this. All those numbers you have between the appliances, I'd like you to just ignore them. All right, the first thing you have to do, though, before you ignore it, is to add up. So let me go over here to my sketch. Okay, starting here, you have footages all the way across. Now, the ones that go just to the water heater, the boiler, and so on, ignore those completely. All right, they are just so much clutter. Get rid of them. Now, there is one missing right here. I forgot to put one in here. I think it's between the gas grill and the dryer. On your sketch, it's they're very close together. Don't worry about it. It doesn't affect anything. It would have been like maybe 5 feet. It was very little, but don't worry about it. What I was looking for is that you added up all of the numbers between here, the meter, and the refrigerator, which is obviously the furthest one. Now, remember, and I know I've said this before, but I don't want you to forget, this isn't just a book exercise. It is a book exercise, but in real life, I'd be doing exactly what I'm doing here today. Okay, it hasn't changed. That page has been the same page for many years. So if you're working with gas, regular half-pound or less gas for any usually residential, light commercial, this is what you're going to be doing, possibly bigger commercial also. All right. So let's add up all of these numbers right here. Now take a look at that sketch. And I came up with 65 feet from the meter to the refrigerator. And that would come out to 70 feet. Now remember, anytime you go over the 10, like 40, 50, 60, you kick it up. So if it was even 61 is 70. 69 is 70. In this case, it was 65. It's 70. Okay? Then what I'd like you to do is get used to taking a ruler, straight edge of any kind, really. Ruler's good. And put it right across at the 70-foot mark. So you're not, every time you take your eyes away, you don't have to go look to see where you are. You're there because the ruler stays there. Also, what I did on this sketch, and I suggest you do it yourself, is look across on 70. Okay, take a look right now. And notice that 1.25 inches can handle 486. Write it down. Okay? Because otherwise you got to keep looking at that, going back, half a dozen times or more. So do it once. 486. Okay, 1 inch can handle up to 237. 3/4, 126, and half will do up to 60 feet. I remember the other night we were talking about 125 feet, and I don't have the chart right here, but I think it was 44,000. So when you add a lot of footage to the distance, to the furthest appliance, it really cuts down the BTUs. But in this case, we can handle up to 60,000 BTUs, which would be typically, actually a lot of appliances would be 60 or less. Okay, so you can make a note of that. It was 70 feet. So what I'd like you to do is to check out the problem that you did. Now, if you add up all of the BTUs, excuse me. Oh, that's my friend Spam. Spam calls me a lot for some reason. Okay, take a look at the BTUs. All right, and I'd like you to add them up. Now, there's two ways you could do it. Actually, there's two ways I could think of. First of all, I'll hold this in front of the camera. This is the way I did it the other night with you. Although I think you're looking at this backwards, aren't you? All right. Well, in any case, the BTUs which are on your sheet starts with 45,000, 150, and so on. Okay, and you could list it like this here and add them up. If you add up all the BTUs, which you of course have to do, should come up with 445. Okay? 445. That's everything. Now, that would include everything from the meter to the water heater, right? That stretch right there would be inch and a quarter. Now, I have the meter inside the building, and it could be inside. It really doesn't matter. It's wherever the gas company wants it. Years ago, most of the meters were inside at the residential level, because I remember as a kid, the gas company guy would knock on the door, and maybe once a month he'd come in, go in the basement, take his reading, and leave. And that changed. They moved the meters outside in a lot of places now, which is obviously a lot better. So this meter doesn't matter if it's inside or outside. It might change the footage by 5 or 10 feet, but that's about it. Okay, but from the meter to here will be all of the BTUs. Okay, and at 445, it can do 486. Inch and a quarter is fine. Okay, first thing we do, let's get rid of that water heater. Now the water heater was 45,000 BTUs, right? So we got rid of the water heater. And we have 400,000 BTUs. So 400,000 will go from right after the water heater, right, to where the boiler splits off. So this stretch right here is 400. Now 400, as you can see, is still well within the inch and a quarter, not even close to 1 inch. So we go one and a quarter, 1 and a quarter. All right, now we're going to knock off the boiler. Normally that will change the size. So we're going to take off 150,000 BTUs. Okay, so from here to the next stop, we're going to take off 150,000 BTUs. And here it is right here. 400 minus 150 is 250. So this little stretch right here where my finger is inch and a quarter from the boiler to the gas grill. Okay? So this stretch right here is 250. Take a look up here. It still won't be inch and a quarter. I mean 1 inch. It's still just too much for 1 inch and a quarter. So we go with inch and a quarter again. I mean, it's too much for 1 inch. So we went with inch and a quarter. All right? So let's get rid of the gas grill. Now the gas grill is, I believe it's 65. Yep. So let's get rid of the gas grill. When you do that, you go from 250 to 185. So without the gas grill, right this here where my finger is, between the gas grill and the dryer, we're looking at 185. Okay, now we're down to 1 inch. We're well within 1 inch right here. So we got inch and a quarter, inch and a quarter, inch and a quarter, 1 inch. Okay. All right. So at 185, excuse me, we have to deduct the dryer. Oh, we got. Did we do the dryer? No, we didn't do the dryer yet. So let's get rid of the dryer. So if we lose the dryer was 40,000, I believe. Yep. Okay, the dryer is 40,000. So we drop the dryer off, and that brings us down to 145. So at this point right here, where my finger is, beyond it, right over here, we only need 145 for what's left. Okay? 145 still falls within the 1 inch range. So we got 1 inch here, 1 inch here. Now the next one is a little tricky. I did not discuss this with you. All right, you've got to talk this one out. Now, we have 3 appliances left, okay? We have a fireplace, stove, and a refrigerator. So you got 60, 50, and 35. 60, 50, 35,000 BTUs. All right? And we have a 1 inch line going to this right here. Now, because I have 2 appliances on here, right, I have to deduct both of them to find out this line here. So if you take this 50 and the 60, actually the other way around, 60 and 50, and add them up, you got 110. Okay? You deduct 110 from 145, and we're down to 35. Now, here's the good news. By deducting these two, right, it drops me down to just 35, which is easily half inch. Like most small, relatively small appliances, you always run half inch. But it also proves something. It proves that we didn't screw up the math, or at least I didn't screw it up. Not yet. The math here tells me that my 35, which is what the problem you were given with the problem, works out. So once you got rid of this here, right, 110,000 BTUs from here, the T, to this T here. So in other words, pretend that's just one appliance for now, 110. Okay, 110 would take 3/4 line to get to it, right? 3/4 will still handle up to 110. Actually goes to 126. So that's the reason you have 3/4 right here where my finger is. You drop off the fireplace. The fireplace is 60 and half inch. There it is, 60. Just makes it. And then your stove, of course, is even less. So that's also half inch. All right, now on the job, this would definitely be easier. But you still have to get the BTU total correct so that you can run the main line correctly. You get a tough inspector, you're working out of town and they're looking to make trouble. Sometimes they do. You're taking work away from the local boys. Don't forget that. When you work out of town, it's a whole different game. Most inspectors are decent and they'll treat you okay, but not always. Ask your boss. I'm sure they'll run into him. And so anyway, up to here, we're 1 inch. This is 3/4 to handle 110,000 total that this is, which leaves us just 35,000 at the end of the line. That's it. Okay, now you've sized it properly. You've got your main line going down and your drops. Okay, now remember, you don't drop straight down. Anybody who's done any gas, I'm sure you're aware of this. You go sideways, then you go down. You want to go sideways for just a short distance and drop down, that's fine. But you don't go straight down. Okay? So let's go backwards. The refrigerator was half inch, right? Which is here. Okay? The stove is 50,000 BTUs. Half inch is good, right? I know I'm going over this pretty fast, so look at your notes. The fireplace was at the limit. This is just by chance. I didn't plan this. It just happened to work out right on the money. Now, would I have gone bigger here? No. There's enough safety built in. Let's face it. This is what, 70 feet away? How far away is this? Maybe 50 at the most. Don't worry about it. If you do this thing properly with the furthest appliance, you got plenty of gas. All right. So this was 50,000 BTUs, half inch. 60,000, half inch. All right. The dryer. Let's see what size the dryer was. The dryer was 40,000 BTUs. All right. So 40,000, half inch. Right. That would be from here to here. Okay. The boiler. The boiler was 150, I believe. Yep. 150. Let's look up here. 3/4, not big enough. 1 inch. All right. And the water heater. Water heater was or is 45. Half inch is fine. All right. So I'm going to put it over here. It'll get a little crowded down there. Okay. There it is. That's all you got to do. It's not really a trick. Just understand that you have to add up all your BTUs, add them all up, and get your distance right. Now, I honestly did measure, when I have a job like this, if you only got a blueprint, it's a little tricky. You can add like from the floor to the ceiling, 8 feet, right? No more than that. So you might have to wing it for a little bit, but not much. If you're on the job, if you're sizing it up on the job, it's a lot easier. But if you got to do it off a blueprint, sure, you can do the horizontal like this. This is easy. But don't forget, you can't see it here because it's not 3-dimensional. But you got some where it comes through with the meter. If it's down near the floor, you got to get it up to the ceiling. Then you got to run it across. And I wouldn't worry too much about the drops to each appliance because we're not counting that footage. I told you I'll lose that. But you still have to figure out the distance to the furthest appliance, and maybe you would have to drop down from the ceiling to your appliance. There's 7 or 8 feet. Okay. Plus, at the beginning, you had 6 or 7 feet to go from the meter to the ceiling. So, just as from what I said, we're looking at 10 or 15 more feet of gas pipe, which obviously would change this chart. And what I said about out of town, I've never seen anybody actually measure the job. I have had myself an inspector go under my pedestal sink to make trouble and to see how the bracket was mounted. And it was the one time that there was a miscommunication. The carpenter didn't put the 2x. I like to go like a 2x10, at least a 2x8 for the bracket, and I had to like put 3 or 4 screws into the one stud that I had, and I caulked the sink right against the wall, so it was fine. But he had to make trouble and tell the owner. Nice guy. He also was a guy that used to let drum traps go for his friends. So it didn't do work. Okay, enough of the gossip. That was 40-year-old gossip, by the way. Let's see. Okay, actually, that went pretty fast. It was the job went that fast. Okay, I'd like to ask you if you have any questions, but seriously, I know you guys don't usually have questions, but when we go live, please, if you got some questions, or much more important, if you see a mistake on the math that I made, or it doesn't make sense or something, please let me know. Last thing I want to do is put out some stuff that doesn't make any sense. Okay, let's see how we're doing for time. We're doing actually pretty good. All right. So what I'd like you to do now is to take out your notes from last week. We ended up on question number 47. So I'm going to shift gears here and take out my own notes, and we'll pick it up at that point. So I'll give you a minute. Tell you what, I'm going to try something new that I learned today. I'm going to try the pause button. Let's see how that works. And when I come back, we'll pick up number 48. Okay, back. At least I hope so. All right. What I'd like to do now is to pick up where we left off the other night. As you can see, I erased that problem with the gas piping, and we're going back to some of these code questions. Now, when I left off, actually time was going on, and I didn't want to get into anything that would take time to explain. So what I'd like to do is to take a look at these illegal fittings and see if I can explain them on the board. All right, the first one. Now, these here, you could be asked, I guess, as time goes on, I suspect that some of these questions are going to fade with time. Fittings like this Sisson joint long hub increaser, I don't remember when these things were legal. And I remember, I go back pretty far. I go back to the legally, in the trade back into the very early 70s. And before that, as a kid, I was working in the 60s. And I don't remember these things being legal. Definitely not in the 70s. So I don't know how long they're going to keep them around. But apparently they're still in the code. So let's see what we got. If you ever come across a fitting that looks, let's say you have a regular cast iron fitting. Now, sometimes my sketches aren't bad. Sometimes they're awful. Not awful, but they're not very good. This is a regular cast iron fitting, right? We'll say 4-inch with the hub. A Sisson has the hub, but the hub goes down too deep. Being 2 hubs deep, like that. Okay? And inside here, now I haven't seen one of these in ages. I have never seen a new one. Now this is that rib that runs around inside, like inside a closet flange, cast iron closet flange or a brass closet flange. There's a little rib in there to keep the oakum from falling through. Okay, and here, when your pipe comes down and sits on the shoulders here, I'm going to draw that. Now, I think somebody told me that You don't see this in color, which is unfortunate, but just bear with me here. This comes down and it sits right on the shoulders right here like that. All right, it goes up. And of course, this goes around like this. When you put the oakum in, the oakum can't fall through. The oakum gets caught up right in here. And just as a refresher, remember, you fill the oakum up to within 1 inch, right? And then you pour the lead, 1 inch of lead at the top. And the rest, of course, is oakum. I don't want to mark this up any more than I have to. So, very simple, right? You guys, most of you guys have probably caulked a few joints. And you pour it like this. And if you're laying it on its side, you got the joint on it. It looks like a piece of very hard rope. And it's something your boss would have to show you how to do. Okay, so here's our lead joint. Now, that's how it normally is. Now, let's go back in time. In fact, some of these fittings predate No Hub. No Hub came in, around the same time as PVC, I think, maybe late 60s, early 70s, perhaps. I remember very well when there was no Hub back in the 60s. It was all lead and oakum. All our underground was lead and oakum, and everything above ground we would use copper for all our branches. There was no PVC either. And let's say you're working in an old house. These days, if you've got a stack like this, and it's got a break in it, a split, usually it actually opens up. I think you guys that do a lot of remodeling, I'm sure what you do is go to a spot where you got something that's pretty solid and cut it here, right? You cut it with the chain cutter? Probably not. Now remember, again, I don't think I said it this year. Maybe to one group, but I don't think so. If you want to know where to cut that pipe, take out a small hammer, like an 8-ounce hammer. You should have an 8-ounce hammer to caulk these joints, although I doubt if many guys have them anymore. A small little ball peen. What you do is you tap this pipe, right, before you even cut it. Tap it, right? And if you get a little bit of, if it sounds dead, like just a dead sound, it's like the thing is toast. And it might have some rust buildup, like about the size of your fingernail. You'll see like a little rust pile on the pipe itself. That pipe is really tight. Probably a lot of it should come out. Now, if your directions are to cut it where it's solid, don't worry about those rust spots, or just cut out what we have to. Let's get out of here. All right, fine. Tap it with a hammer, see where it is. See what you got. Go back to a place where it's at least solid all the way around. Now, some of this cast iron might be service weight, the lightweight stuff. Also, I was told, my father told me, I guess it's true, that some of the cast iron, when they poured it like 100 years ago, it wasn't spun. In other words, new cast iron, you'll notice the thickness is uniform. It's always the same all the way around. But some of the old stuff he claimed wasn't. And the problem is that it was thinner in some places than others. Again, this is way before, probably before my father's time, but I guess he was told about it. In any case, this cast iron does wear out, and you have these splits develop. I don't think you're going to find it in the new stuff, but you'll have to be around for another 50 years to find out. So, cut this here and cut this here. Do you use the chain cutter? No. If you use the chain cutter, you're going to take the pipe and crush it like an egg. Don't do that. Okay? Again, do whatever your boss tells you. But my guess is he's not going to want you to cut this stack with a chain cutter. That's really for new pipe, right? New pipe, hit it with a hammer, it will ring. It's got a very different sound than something like this, okay? So you're probably going to have to use your grinder, your, what do you call that thing, the zip saw, or Sawzall with a metal cutting blade. If you use a metal cutting blade, you burn up a blade or two. They have the grit blade, you try that. But I think that most guys are using a grinder these days. At least that's what I've been told. Now, when you get in near the back of it, you can't put the grinder, so you're going to have to probably Sawzall the last part out. But anyway, I'm getting off the subject, not so much off the subject, but that's how you get the pipe out. Now, years ago, they didn't have a piece of no hub that they would take and put in here, right? So what you do now is you measure, let's say you cut it, and you cut cut it nice and straight. You didn't cut it at an angle. Okay? You cut it pretty straight. So what you do is you measure from here to here. All right? The highest point. In other words, let's say this comes up a bit. That's where you measure from. And this one comes down a bit. Okay, measure from there to there. So that you got the closest point between those two pieces of pipe. What now are two pieces of pipe. All right? So we'll say that it's 28 inches. Right? From the closest point to the closest point. All right. This is what I want you to do. Deduct at least 3/8 of an inch. So take this. Okay? Hit it right. Okay, cut it with this chain snapper, your no hub. All right, so get a piece of no hub, cut it. And you're going to put the no hub in here. Get a gasket, put it on up here. Put the metal half of the gasket up first. Then take the rubber portion and roll it up right here. And then put one on down here with the metal down below. And roll that one down and put the pipe in. Now you're going to have to, you guys that have done it know you're going to kind of, sometimes you got to pull that rubber down lower than you really want to, and then eventually get the pipe in there. Worst case is you get your grinder out and cut a little bit more. Okay, this is a little tight, maybe 1/2 inch, but around this much should be good if you can cut straight. Okay, and you put the pipe in, you're done. All right, now you guys think, oh, that's a lot of work. It is. However, take away the no hub. What do? What they used to do is put in one of these sisson joints, like I said, before my time. So you take out the rotted piece, right? And you're going to have to drop down to a hub or go up to a hub. No, actually, excuse me, you got to go down to a hub. So down here, we'll say there was a hub down here, below where it was bad, right? And what you want to do now is to get your sisson, right? And with the sisson, what you do is you work the sisson into place here and you slide it up 2 pipes high, right? And then drop it down 1. Okay, so just picture this. You fit it in as tight as you can. Again, I never worked with a sisson, so I don't know the measurements. But you just picture, you just put it up 2, up to here, and then drop it down 1. So now the pipe is right here, like this, but here. Okay, so what's it look like? All right, so now we have a pipe right here, right? This little bump here holds the oakum. It doesn't hold the pipe, and that's why it's illegal. Oops. Okay? Because this pipe has no support. This is only holding the oakum in. This pipe would easily go right by. It has to, because when you put it up like this, right? Then you drop it down. It's got to go by this here. And the oakum, of course, is not in place yet. So you go up 2, down 1. And this is what it looks like when it's done. And the bottom would be in the hub. This hub here. Right? It'd be in the bottom of the hub like that. Looks good. From the outside, you say, oh, that's fine. Well, apparently it's not fine, because all stacks depend on the fitting below to hold the weight. Right? So unless you go horizontally, that stack, there's a lot of weight on that stack from the basement. Just think about that, to the 3rd floor in these old houses. And this doesn't hold anything, right? At all. So that's a sisson. Illegal. Just know what it is. Now the belt trap is not something I ever worked with. I think I've seen it, and I'll draw what I think is a sketch of it. I think you got something coming in like this, and some kind of partition in there, and it comes out. Sorry, I don't know much about a belt trap, and I really should look into it. Okay, in fact, don't let me off the hook on that. I got to check into a belt trap. Okay, now this one, long hub increaser. I think it would be this here. This might be like a 4-inch coming in. This I've seen. And this here is, I can't remember now just how this goes down. It flares down something like this. Maybe some of you guys have seen it. If you're working in an old building and you got a 2-inch vent going out the roof, I've seen this in a few commercial buildings. They obviously were very old. And this would be like 2-inch. Then they kick it up to 4-inch and the roof would be like right here. So you'd have from the ground, it looks like a 4-inch stack. But when you go inside, you look up just before it goes out the roof, it does this. Okay, for a vent, I don't see anything wrong with that. And it'd be a long hub, increase it. Now, there is a fitting. I'm going to draw it here. I almost forgot about it. You're going to see this out in the trade. And it goes like this. Okay? This would be, we'll say that this is a 4-inch. This is 2-inch. Now you might have guessed that this is a vent. It is. Okay, so this would go out the roof. And this here would be a return bend, I believe that's what they call it. As far as I know, it's still legal. I never use one. But if you see a fitting like that, it's a return bend. Okay, just a few more. We're going to have to wrap this one up. It's our friend, the full S-trap. This one here is very important because it pops up on tests, gets you in trouble. All right, so let's talk about it again, even though this is going to be a bit of a review. Now, sooner or later, you're going to bump into a full S-trap like that, chrome. Usually they're chrome, and they're under like an old-fashioned sink. Okay? And over here, this goes into the floor. It's got a scutcheon. That thing like that goes around it. Okay, the floor is right there. And the lead goes into lead, usually, is flared over like that, and the lead goes like so. And this brass sits right inside the flared lead. Okay, so this is usually, there's really not much of a seal here. By the time you're taking this out, it's probably because it let go over here. So get rid of the scutcheon, get that out of your way. Take the trap out. Now, what do you do here? That's an illegal trap. Just because you can buy it at one of your supply houses doesn't mean that it's not illegal. It is. Your choice. I'm not telling you to put this one in, but you got to figure it out. The trap that would legally replace this is a type of drum trap. I think they call it a Bristol, and I wonder if they even carry it in the supply houses anymore. I think my buddy Mr. Spam is calling. Yeah. Popular with Mr. Spam. Okay, so what I'd like you to do is to make note, it's a full S-trap, right? And right here, it goes into lead. Now, I don't think we talked about it this year. You guys that do remodeling, like in the city here or maybe New Bedford, you're going to be working at some of these old houses. And as the years go by, there'll be fewer and fewer of these. But once in a while, you're going to bump into one with lead. And the lead is still good, right? The lead's still working. There's nothing wrong with it. The only thing wrong is the trap. They don't want to get rid of anything. And you got a choice. Do you want to put a trap like this back in, or do you want to put another trap in? But even if you use the other trap, you're still going to be dealing with an 1.25 inch tailpiece, probably 1.25 inch. I don't think they're 1.5 inch. And whatever size was there is what you're going to use. And into the lead you go right here. So what's the other trap look like? Well, this is illegal. So before I go into something else, full S trap, forget it. It is not legal under any circumstances. The other one is a 3/4 S. This would be what looks like a P trap, like this. And you come over here, and then you go into a Y, right? Like that. And this is a whatever it is, PVC material, makes no difference. Okay, that's illegal. It's got to go straight in. So this here is a 3/4 S. Okay. Now I don't know that. I'd like to say that they're going to ask you about this on a test. I don't know, but you better be aware of it because the inspectors know what this is, and you're going to get rejected. All right. If anybody's got a story to go with this, by all means, let us in on it. But just be aware what a 3/4 S is. It'll be a P trap, and then when you get, instead of going straight into the stack, which you're supposed to do, like with a TY, you go down like that. Can't do it. Okay, because it relies on the venting, only works if this goes right into the stack without dropping like this. And you can only go like 5 feet with 1.5 inches. Okay, now remember, a P trap, make a note of this if you don't know this, because you don't hear this much out in the trade, is also known as a 1/2 S trap. Okay, a 1/2, half an S trap. Excuse me. Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah. Okay, it's a half an S trap. It's legal. Okay, not a name we use very often. All right. Now the clean out right here. Do you need a clean out? Maybe. If it's accessible, in other words, you can get at it without causing damage. That's how I phrase it. If you got to punch out a ceiling, no, it's not accessible. If it's in a concrete floor, no. But if it's just a matter of like a ceiling tile, what do we call that? Those removable ceiling tiles where you just push it back. That's accessible. Then you need a clean out cover. All right. So if you can get at it without a big deal, without damage, clean out cover. All right. Now, what I would suggest is when it's going to be buried where it can never be gotten at, take that fiber washer out of there and save it for the P trap where the cover fell off and the washer's gone. All right. So put it aside. You can use it another day. And take that cover and glue it and put it on. That's only for the P traps that you cannot ever get to. You don't want the fiber to act up and cause a water stain, 10 years from now. So hang on to that fiber washer. This is on the PVC traps. On brass trap or any other kind of trap, if it's got rubber on it, I would just tighten it up, snug it down. That's it. If you got to put pipe dope on it or Teflon, that's fine. That'll probably hold it. Now, once in a great while, you'll want a P trap, PVC, no clean out. Because believe it or not, there's some floors that are so shallow in these old, not new houses, old houses. New houses, you probably aren't going to see a house less than 2 by 8, which is 7.5, 7 3/8. But once in a while, you get an old house. You got a 3-inch wide beam, maybe 6 inches high, and you need everything you can get. And your sheetrock will be right there, or the lath, those wooden sticks will be right up. I've had them sit right on the sheetrock. I've actually even dug the sheetrock out on regular sheetrock. I've even dug the sheetrock out a bit to fit the trap in. So that cover, that clean out cover, is in the way. It'll cost you about maybe a 1/2 inch. All right, little trick. Okay, I'm going to have to, definitely I'm running over time. Okay, I'm going to wrap this one up and switch over to another video. Okay, I will see you guys on the other side.